It's another episode of the Ranting Cast. I'm Frank R. Curry. Ranting Ron is here with us this week, and our guest is David Shapiro. He is from BlueSeatBlogs.com. And if you know what that means, it means we're talking a lot of Rangers this episode. So, Dave, first off, welcome to the show.
No, thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, so we'll talk a lot about the Rangers and their off season, their season they had, making the conference finals and being really 2 wins away from the Stanley Cup, which I don't think a lot of fans really saw that coming, especially when it was like 3 or 4 years ago. The ownership sent the letter saying, "Hey, we're rebuilding now. It's going to be a little while before we really are a Stanley Cup contender again." And then a few years later, here they are, 2 wins away from making the cup. But we're also going to talk about free agency and everything. I gotta bring this up, guys, before we really get started. I'm not a mind reader, and I cannot predict the lottery because people were asking me that last week, Wednesday and Thursday. Ron, you saw it. Dave, I don't know if you saw it, but right before free agency started, at 11 a.m., so an hour before everything got going, I sent out a tweet saying, I think the Sabres should do this. And it was sign Ilya Lyubushkin and sign Eric Comrie. And what did they do? They did both.
Signed them both.
So people thought I was like some kind of, wizard or something.
Can you give me winning lottery numbers? Because I could really use them.
As I said, I can't predict winning lottery numbers. Trust me, if I could, I'd be a millionaire right now.
Okay, how come plan B, can you buy a lottery ticket for me and just send it to me?
Right.
I could buy you a lottery ticket, but I can't guarantee it's going to win.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you never see in the newspaper fortune teller wins lottery. Why is that? I always said
something weird's going on.
Yeah, I always really said,
if I ever won the lottery, no one around me will ever be poor. I promise. I'm moving to the richest neighborhood there is. Okay.
I mean, so we'll talk a little bit about free agency. It's been almost a week now since it's started, and we saw the big fish, Johnny Gaudreau, go to Columbus, which shocked everybody, it seemed like. As I said, I basically predicted the Sabres were going to sign Lyubushkin and Comrie, which it was more so based on where was the value in free agency, because I just did not think they were going to land any big names or anything. I mean, you guys can both agree, the Sabres aren't an air team that you can land where you can attract a big fish right now. Maybe in the future, who knows? But I just felt that Eric Comrie, he had a really good season for Winnipeg. Really, he kind of was just as good as Connor Hellebuyck was. I think there was a little bit difference in the numbers.
Numbers of the games for sure. I mean,
well, besides the sample size, I mean, I'm talking actually in the numbers, because I got the numbers up right now. 921 save percentage in all situations for Comrie. Hellebuyck was 910, but Hellebuck's goals saved above expected was 13.59. Well, Comrie's was 9.89. So you just see, that's mostly because Winnipeg's defense is so bad. I mean, they're just a bad defensive team. But at 5v5, Comrie had a 936 save percentage, and Hellebuyck had a 919 and an 11.24 goals saved above expected, while Hellebuyck had a 8.53. So right away, the numbers just tell me Hellebuyck is a better goalie than Comrie is when the team is shorthanded. So that's always going to be an interesting facet to talk about for the Sabres with Comrie, is how is he going to handle when the team is shorthanded? Because you still got to make saves. Even if you allow a goal, it's not your fault, but you still got to try to at least make the saves you can make. Lyubushkin always just felt like a value signing because he's going to bring a physical element to the defense, which is something that they're going to need. He's going to bring experience. He was on the Leafs last season. He was in the playoffs. He knows what it takes to get there. Right shot guy as well. And I think he's a guy who is going to play on the third pair. He'll probably play with Jacob Bryson. And hopefully he allows Bryson to kind of elevate his offensive game. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. And he's going to help bring stability in the locker room, stability on defense, on the ice and everything. I don't know what you guys think about the two signings for the Sabres, at least. When, after that, we can at least talk more about free agency. And then with Dave, you're on right now, we can talk more about what the Rangers have been doing so far too.
I care more
really
about the
like
goalie.
that Comrie signing for you guys. That was a great signing. And
Yeah,
you're not paying much for goaltending. It leaves you wiggle room, low risk. He's a good goalie. He's the best goalie you guys have had in a long time.
It's a low risk, high reward signing. That's why I just felt like that was the move that they were gonna make. I felt like Comrie was gonna do one of two things. He was either gonna sign with the team that he was gonna be the starter for, which is the Sabres, or he was gonna sign with a team who he could compete for the starting job with. The first team I thought of was the Leafs. They just traded for Matt. They really were just paid draft picks to get Matt Murray. So I felt like they were going to still try to find a guy who could challenge Murray at the very least. They ended up going with Ilya Samsonov, but I felt like they could have easily went after Comrie if they wanted to as well, because Comrie isn't making as much as Samsonov. I think like it's only over 2 years as well. But Samsonov signed a 1-year deal. It's like none of that. The money in the contract really doesn't matter. It was just a matter of pick the player. And Sabres, I think they got the best bang for their buck, at least so far in free agency.
Yeah, I like what they did. I don't know much about Lyubushkin, but Comrie is a solid goaltender. I honestly thought the Sabres were going to trade for Georgiev.
I was going to bring that up to you and ask you, is that been a move Buffalo should have done?
I would not have liked that at all.
They tried to trade him for the last 4 years, haven't they, Dave?
It's such a weird gray area because Georgiev, when you look at his numbers as a starter versus a backup, his starter numbers are great. He's up there with Comrie, but his numbers have been so downgraded by being a backup, and being a backup requires a mindset that not a lot of people have. You have to be able to keep yourself game ready, mentally sharp, physically ready, and only play once every other week, especially when you have Shesterkin in net and you were the starter. Then Shesterkin came and did what he did. So it's such a tough situation. And I happen to really like Georgiev. He's going to do well in Colorado. I thought he'd been a good fit in Buffalo, but he landed in a good spot. And, Buffalo obviously got Comrie. And Georgiev will always have a spot in my heart for knocking out Tony DeAngelo. So
yeah,
I'll take that as a win.
The one thing I guess that worries me about Georgiev is his play style going to fit Colorado style? I think with the way Colorado plays, really most goalies will work in that system. That's how a team defense plays. I think really it doesn't get talked about enough on how that means a goalie can fit, because like every goalie has their own play style. I mean, look at Marc-Andre Fleury. He challenges the shooter. He never looks at the pass. He's always, I'm going after the shooter. The defenseman have to take the pass no matter what. And if that pass gets through, Fleury's dead. He's done. Like that's a goal that's going to be allowed. So I always wonder how a play style can affect a goalie based on whatever team they are, based on the team defense, how they're structured. The Sabres typically play more of a swarm kind of defense in their own end. They'll typically have like 5 deep, essentially, almost like all 5 of their guys will be like right around the at highest, they'll typically be like around the faceoff dots. So I wonder how that style is going to help. It will help, or even will it hurt Comrie, and then what could have been for Georgiev as well.
What I would look at is where the man in front plays for the forward in front. So I'm bringing this up because of Henrik Lundqvist. Lundqvist was a rare breed that he didn't want his defenseman covering the guy in front. He wanted him in front of him. It's called fronting. Mm-hmm. And basically it gave him a little bit more time to react. And that's why he played so deep in the net as well. Gave him that extra half a second to react. And that's how he preferred the Rangers to play. Now you'll see with Shesterkin, it's more of a net front presence where you'll see a guy on the man in front and pushing him around. There's pros and cons to both. So that's the piece I would look at. That's the one that impacts goaltending more than, say, a low zone collapse, which is what you were alluding to, or an overload. There's pros and cons to both, but most goalies prefer the net front presence as opposed to a fronting.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So since we're still on the topic of free agency as well, what did you make of the Rangers move so far? I mean, Ryan Strome goes to Anaheim, Vetrano goes to Anaheim too, and then they bring in Vinny Trocheck on a 7-year deal.
So we'll go with the guys that left. Strome, I like the guy. He revitalized his career in New York. My issue with Strome was the one and done nature of that Rangers second line. And if you look at the numbers, you see they had the highest rate of high danger chances per shot on goal. But if that shot didn't go in, they were in the defensive zone for the rest of the shift.
Right.
They were transition, rush based. And if they didn't capitalize on that one rush, they were done for. And part of that may be Artemi Panarin. Strome was a little bit more of a passenger, deferring to Panarin, as with anybody. That's the right move anyway. Yeah. But that's not the style that Gallant wants them to play. He wants them in cycling, forechecking, and that wasn't what they did. So I like Strome. I wasn't overly upset when he left. Vetrano was a luxury the Rangers couldn't afford. Trocheck, I like the cap hit. I like the style of play. He's, again, in on the forecheck. He will be a nice complement to Panarin. Panarin will create space for Trocheck to get to the front and get to the rebounds. If it's Kakko, he'll be the boards play guy. He'll be the guy that has the overall vision, seeing the ice, that plays more to his strengths as well. And Trocheck's basically a second-line Chris Kreider, man in front, screens and deflections, and that's what they need. And he also wins faceoffs.
Yeah, I like that. It's a really interesting signing, just because when I look at the numbers too, I look at Trocheck and I think, he's not as offensively minded as Ryan Strome is, but he's going to be better defensively for the team. And I think he's going to be more consistent as well. Yep. And I think that makes it an interesting fit for the Rangers and for what they want to do. I guess I just still worry about, can they generate more offense? Can they stop being that one and done? And then my biggest worry then with Trocheck is, does he help with that? I don't know if he does, but maybe if he's playing with Panarin, that changes.
He definitely does. It's the style of play. I brought up the forechecking along the boards. The Rangers, period one against the Penguins in the playoffs, that was the way Gallant wants them to play. Constantly in on the forecheck, disrupting passing lanes, getting the 1-2-2 flowing, where you have F1 in deep, pressuring the puck carrier. You have F2 around the faceoff dot, top of the circle, reading the play, taking off that initial passing lane, and F3 around the top of the circle, the blue line, jumping in for that secondary pass. Trocheck as F1 in creates that, and then whomever is up at the blue line reading the play, be it Panarin, Kakko, Natalie Kravzov, if he still is with the Rangers by the time the season starts, they're smart enough to be able to read that and jump in, and that's how you create more offense. Panarin's gonna score. He's one of the best wingers in the game.
Yep.
If you can get him the puck more often, he only scored 25 goals only scored 25 goals last year, but he still had 95 points. He wasn't able to put the puck in the net at even strength, and that was a big issue for the Rangers. They were a goalie and a power play for most of the season, and Trocheck rounds them out in addition to actually having forwards. Greg McKegg played 50 games for the Rangers last year, and it became a running joke that Greg McKegg was always in the lineup. And great name, not a good hockey player.
Yeah. Panarin had 22 goals last season. 96 points. That's
absurd.
It's absurd.
And Panarin's more of an even split guy. He's more of a 40-40, 40-50 kind of a guy, but to only put up 22 goals, we were convinced he was hurt all of last season, but it just was the way the Rangers were playing. When you have Dryden Hunt as your second line right winger for 60 games, you're not going to look good. So that's just how it is. Trocheck rounds it out. You need Lafreniere and Kakko to really step up.
Yeah.
They're both going to be top six. And a lot of the concerns of the Rangers are, will Lafreniere and Kakko step up? Well, guess what? If they don't, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse or not, your rebuild is screwed. So your rebuild, no matter what, is screwed if those two don't step up. So give them the chance to step up. Trocheck is that nice veteran presence that will do some of the dirty work for them, open up space. Lafreniere is going to play on the top line with Kreider and Zibanejad. You have a similar dichotomy on both lines right there. So in theory, the top six is good, and you actually have a third line that can score with Hedel and Kravzov and probably Barclay Goodrow. I'm not a fan of Goodrow in the third line, but it is what it is. I'm not going to lose sleep.
I mean, with what they're paying him as well, it makes sense. And then next season too, though, are they going to get Sammy Blais back as well from injury? Like
there were rumors he was going to play in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. So then like he's on the fourth. He's going to help out the fourth line, and so Ryan Reeves as well will be there. Will be a presence, and they brought back Jillian Gauthier, right, and they have Ryan Carpenter. So like the fourth line will basically be set there. It's really just a matter of can Lafreniere and Kakko still needs a new contract as well, but
they'll sign him. That I'm not worried about.
I wouldn't be worried about that.
That fourth line, I mean, last year the Rangers, McKegg, Reeves, who I love Ryan Reeves. He should not be an everyday player.
Oh, yeah.
And you rotated in Gauthier, Kevin Rooney, all these guys that are fourth liners or tweeners. And the line was there just to take a shift every now and then.
Yeah.
They didn't play the penalty. Well, Rooney played the penalty kill, but that was really it.
And then Tyler Mott, too.
Yeah, Tyler. Well, I'm at the point where Mott's probably not coming back, even though there were rumors he was. But the Rangers pre-deadline and the Rangers post-deadline, two completely different teams.
Yeah.
And now the Rangers going into the next season look more like post-deadline Rangers than they do pre-deadline Rangers. And thank God Greg McKegg didn't re-sign with the Rangers. I would have lost my mind. There's a running joke. You will get Greg McKegg and you will like it. And that was one of the guys. He runs a New York Rangers shot club. Basically, every time the Rangers score, you take a shot of whatever, water, lemonade, beer, whatever. And he came up with that, and it was a brilliant slogan. So I'm glad we don't have to deal with that this year.
I've always seen Greg McKegg memes on Twitter as well, and I find them hilarious. I guess then the biggest question heading into next season for the Rangers, it's three things for me. And I'll save the biggest one as the third one. One, what's Chris Kreider's goal output going to look like? Because I don't think he scores 50 goals again.
107.
Yeah. Okay. Two, is the power play going to continue or keep up what they did last season? And three, Shesterkins. Is he going to what's his regret? He's going to regress. How bad is that going to be? Or can it at least be comparable to where it doesn't really affect you, but you'll notice it in the numbers, but they're still going to win, but they still can win games.
So we'll start with Kreider. He's not putting up 50, but his style of play is one where I think he shot like 20%, 18 to 20% last year. Mm-hmm. His style of play, getting in front of the net for the deflections, for rebounds, that's always going to be there. The hand-eye coordination doesn't disappear out of nowhere. Neither does that size and strength and speed and the instincts. What changed in his game this year was very subtle. Instead of just constantly being in front of the net, screening the goalie, looking for deflections and rebounds, he was reading the play, especially on the power play, a lot better. And you see him drift to the back door or drift back to the high slot and put himself in that position to shoot. That changed this year. I don't know what clicked with him or if it was just something we just noticed this year and he was finally scoring. You combine those three, he's not going to put up 50, but he will probably put up 30 if that continues. And that's a big if, which if the power play continues to score. Losing Strome was perfect in the bumper. And the 1-3-1 bumper role, you need a guy who, again, can read the play, can make the very subtle movements to get open for chances, to do the tap passes back to either Fox, Panarin, or Zibanejad, depending on how the play is going. Strome was perfect for that, and he didn't get a lot of credit for it. And the talk has been putting Panarin in that role and letting Lafreniere be that off-wing shot that the Rangers kind of need to complement Zibanejad. There are a lot. We have a college hockey coach and a guy that used to work for the Rangers and was very deep into the systems when he was there, who write for the site, and they were both very adamant that Lafreniere is the better bumper player. He reads the play better. He's able to make the touch passes better than Panarin, and you need a true threat to take the eyes off of Zibanejad in the Ovechkin spot. Panarin's that threat. It doesn't matter if Panarin's not on his off wing. He will score no matter what. So if Lafreniere clicks on the power play, that's two birds, one stone. Kreider will still get his chances, and we're not going to be questioning whether or not Lafreniere is taking the next step. So that's huge.
That would be, yeah.
And I'll connect it to Shesterkin, takes the pressure off of him to make 50 saves a night. If the Rangers are putting up 3-4 goals a game, they're going to win most games. He's not going to take a huge step back where he goes from a 930 to a 900 save percentage. Remember, this is a guy that I think there were maybe a handful of games, 5 or 6 in the KHL where he let up more than one goal.
How'd you feel about him in the playoffs this year?
He had a couple of shaky games in Pittsburgh. And I'm going off. I didn't watch all the games. I was on my honeymoon.
Congrats,
I
man.
couldn't. Thank you. I couldn't get the games. I was actually on a Mediterranean cruise. I tried. They had a sports bar and everything, and I tried to sit there at 11 p.m. and they didn't have anything.
Your wife planned that. She goes, "Hey, don't let him." You have a way. I'm done.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is right. A lot of people say they kind of now live before the playoffs started. I'm not a betting man at all. I put money on Colorado to win the cup, but then I also on the fun side, I said I could see the Rangers and Calgary in the finals because they are to me the two teams with the two best goalies on each side going in. That's how I felt. So I was rooting for Rangers, man. I didn't care about the money thing. I was rooting for Rangers all the way. I thought it was just been a really cool story because I thought going in they probably. Tampa. I was tired of Tampa Bay. I was tired. There's not, Rangers are a team I don't mind. It's right. I like the Rangers are fine. The Islanders are fine. There's not too many teams in the conference. Those teams like no reason to hate them. So it was like I really wanted them. They were fun to watch, and it just seemed like you got through Pittsburgh, in the second round Carolina, right? No, Carolina. Yeah, I just that went 6 also, right? No,
7.
No, that was 7.
The Rangers they won Game 7 in Carolina.
Sorry,
and it wasn't even close. The Rangers crushed them.
They dominated that game.
Yeah. That was a great game.
But overall, we gotta say here, Igor had 2 terrible games, but bounced back nicely from both of them, and that's what's important is how you bounce back.
Yep.
Sometimes
Games 3 and 4 in Pittsburgh were awful.
Yeah, right. And I think there's the one game that. I'm trying to think. Maybe it was against Tampa Bay that Tampa scored really late in the game or something on a breakdown. And against Tampa, it seemed like he played really well, but then the scoring stopped a little bit. The power play went to heck. I mean,
Anthony Cirelli was Tampa's best player. God.
Yeah,
he shut down the Ranger. He shut down the Zibanejad Kreider line, which was the only line aside from the kids that were able to generate offense consistently. They're out of the game. Panarin and Strome are one and done. So that leaves the Kakko, Lafreniere, Hedl line, and they don't play on the power play, or they don't play as much on the power play. And you can't win against Tampa Bay with one line that can produce offense. It just doesn't.
And their power play just was, if I'm right, wasn't it I know Boston didn't score anything, but Frank didn't Rangers not score anything in the power play. I can't remember now. It seemed like the power play was their doom. I don't remember it all. I know I really wanted them to win. They didn't.
Hey, talking in the Carolina series?
No, against Tampa Bay.
Oh,
it felt like it was like they just couldn't score goals all of a sudden on the power play.
Yeah, that kind of started in Game 4, I believe. Their power play just stopped clicking, and But like games 1 to 3, they were scoring on the power play at will, like they were pretty much the whole playoffs and the whole season.
In the one game, I think they lost. I think they might have lost overtime. Well, I think it was one game lost overtime. They had like that was the game they had 2-man advance for a full 2 minutes and didn't score.
Yep.
And I think they were up 1-0 at the time. And I remember them on
Twitch.
Hey, look at we're Buffalo Sabre fans. Believe me, we know how it went back, and we'll get to that in a little bit about how 2005, 6, how that ended. Them,
because they did basically stop scoring on the power play because games 4, 5, and 6 they only scored 1 goal in each game.
Yeah, the offense disappeared, and the power play disappears. I am surprised Strome didn't have surgery. I'm surprised Gaudreau didn't have surgery because I thought he broke his ankle. We were talking about Panarin and kind of looking off all season. This was a good learning experience for the Rangers. They're not going away. And it's so easy to say that they're going to take a step back. Just statistically speaking, 2 teams in the East make it to the Eastern Conference Final. It's easy to say, oh, yeah, they're not going to get there next year. Oh, gee, thanks.
Let's talk.
Well, and then you realize one of those teams is Tampa Bay, and they made the Cup final for
such a good
years.
Coach. Cooper is him and Bednar are the 2 best coaches in the NHL.
And they know how to play the cap. So let's talk about the step back. So you look at the Rangers analytically overall. I'll take away the goaltending situation. Analytically, Buffalo on offense was a little bit better. Defensively, Buffalo's it was like analytic. Now I'm not big on analytics. I'm just not. I mean, Frank will be more. My other co-host is more. But when you tell me this stuff, I said, well, yeah, but they won more. If Shesterkins takes, I mean, if he does what he did this year, next year, that's Hasek levels, the way he did 2 years in a row. If he takes a step back, to like, let's say he's comes back a little bit, just a little bit, not too much, but like say between the mean and the hole where he was, let's say they meet in the middle, okay? What can the Rangers still? How far can they go? Because you're saying, oh, these guys got to score them all, score 3-4 goals a game. They weren't doing that. So, do you think for them to really have another year like this year, it's going to be more on the offense than him this year? Because you cannot expect the same season from him again, can you?
You can't expect the same season, but I have a question. When you're looking at those numbers, are you looking at season-long numbers, or are you looking at post-trade deadline when the Rangers stop playing Greg McKegg and Julien Gauthier all the time?
That does make a difference because the Rangers numbers, especially like their expected goals for and everything, got a lot better after the trade deadline when they got Vetrano and Tyler Mott and Andrew Kopp and them.
Yep.
Steve sent me the stuff. So.
It was addition by subtraction because I think they pushed out Dryden Hunt, who was miscast as the second line right winger, Greg McKegg, who should have been fired into the sun, and I actually think Ryan Reeves wound up getting scratched a few times, and Julien Gauthier was mostly the third guy out who actually drove play but couldn't score to save his life. But you're adding guys, Vetrano and Kopp, you replace them with Trocheck and Sammy Blais, and then you're also rotating the kids into the top 6. Yep. And then you have a fourth line that doesn't have Greg McKegg, or in this case, the Rangers may not play Ryan Reeves all that often. Remember, he's 30, 38, so he's 35, 36.
How you doing? How am I? Wait, hold on.
I know how old the oldest guy in the Rangers is, and it's younger than me, and that's depressing.
Yeah.
That's almost as depressing as this comment here from 2001 Lexa Leonidas. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sitting Kakko and putting Strome in that last game, you're giving me flashbacks, and you're killing me here. That was a horrible coaching decision. Assuming Gallant doesn't galaxy brain the season, the Rangers are much better equipped to be able to withstand Shesterkin being human. But human is not – I think he's more like Lundqvist than he is like the 940 goalie, or he is, say, give me a horrible goal. Jonathan Quick last year, who was awful last year.
So it'd be
I would actually say Gibson the last 3 years. He's been awful.
Yeah,
like, actually, Quick had a pretty good year last season. But yeah, Gibson I think is definitely more the example. And like Shesterkin had a 933 save percentage.
He was 940 heading into the trade deadline.
Yeah, that is true. So, but even if so, then I guess then when it comes to Shesterkin, it becomes if he's gonna drop. If he drops to 925, one, still great. Two, how much does that affect the winning that the Rangers have? Can they at least make that up? Like that would
the
have,
Rangers
that would
are a
happen,
100-point team if he's a 925 goalie.
But you're also taking 20 goals away from Chris Kreider. So if that happens.
But if you
you're adding
redistribute
20
those 20
goals to Lafreniere and Kakko.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
yeah. And even Hedl. Like
next year, the next year could be the biggest. The next season, it could be for the Rangers is it could be when I'm trying to think of something to compare them to, but like when the Bills in 1989 lost that game to Cleveland and the Browns, where we thought we were that good and we lost, and everyone said, "Wow, we're gonna be back," and then we just all of a sudden we're great for 4 years. Next year's that year for you guys. I think you have to take the next step next year more, only because the show maybe even only make it to the third round again. But if your goalie, takes a step back, but then all of a sudden other guys around aren't that much better. If you can stay around the 100 points a little bit more, then it could be. I think hockey's a weird sport.
I think they'll still be able to compete in the Metro.
I think because Pittsburgh's old.
For a division crown.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh's old. Washington's old. Carolina's very good, but they're Carolina. They're a weird team. They don't seem to have 2 or 3
Carolina's right now. Carolina's still my favorite to win the division. But
Islanders aren't going away.
I think the Islanders won't go away. Yeah,
are the team to watch.
Yeah,
they're going to be interesting. If they can get a save, then they're going to compete in a lot more games. They may
like a team
start challenging.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Blackwood can. I don't know if he got vaccinated yet, but if he doesn't, and Canada still has that rule in place, he can't play any game in Canada.
Nope, that's
why they traded for Vanacek.
That's about 10 games probably, roughly. I'm just guessing.
Get the West. It's only Montreal and Toronto.
We got Calgary, Vancouver.
Oh wait, Ottawa too. Sorry,
Ottawa. Well, no one remembers Ottawa.
3, 6, 9, 10. Yeah. So probably about 15 games.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw a take. I brought it up before we started. I think overall, if you take away the goalie situations, when the way Buffalo played from March 1st on, the last 36 games, Buffalo's one of the top teams in hockey for the last 3 games. That's when we got healthy. So I think we can catch Boston. I think because they're starting to see. I think the team we can catch. But I think if we get goaltending, I don't think we'll get it. If we switch goaltenders, I think Buffalo could have a better team than the Rangers. If we switch goaltenders, but we can't do that. And you guys got Fox, but I think that with Dahlin going to take next step possibly. I just think they're mirroring a little bit each other. And just like in the mid 2000s, these two teams clashed like that. I think we're on our way up. I think it'll be more fun now if the Sabres are good, the Islanders are good, the Rangers. I'd like to see the Canadians get good. I think when Canadian teams are good, but you get Montreal being good. I don't want Carolina and Florida and Tampa. They're not hockey cities. So I think Buffalo is closing the gaps on the Rangers and Islanders if we get the goaltending. And it might not be this year. We don't know. Their future goalies are a year or 2 away.
We'll see.
So that will be interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that, only because I'm looking at the Buffalo roster and you're really banking on Cousins or Krebs being that elite player that is a game changer.
I think we're really thinking that Cousins can have a breakout season next year.
And Quinn.
Cousins is the real deal. I mean, he's going to be good. I don't want you to take that the wrong way that he's going to be a middle six center.
Well, no, it going to be a top line center.
No, he's got to
take the next step though.
He has to take that next step, and then and with the Sabres too. Yeah, well, that's what I was getting to though. Yeah. Like Thompson went from being a fringe NHL player to a 38 goal scorer just from going to center.
I want to say I called him.
You can't expect him to do that again next season as well. So where are those goals going to be?
Skinner had a great season.
And even then, Skinner's always been an up and down player. He'll have 30 goals one year, and then he'll score 20 the next. So we
did get rid of the coach. So
the coach does play a huge role here.
He lets them play gun and gun. We like it out.
And even then, I mean,
Tuck is good.
Tuck is really good.
The team that finished
Olofsson's gonna be back as well. He signed a 2-year extension. I really wonder about Casey Middlestad as well. I really do. I thought he was primed for a breakout season this year, but he got he got injured multiple
on.
times. He missed like more than half the year. And then you mentioned Krebs earlier. You know, he's a guy who I think still needs to show a little bit more, but has at least shown flashes of that potential.
He looked really good in the playoffs of the Amerks.
I mean,
great in the playoffs of the Amerks.
To me, Peyton Krebs at a lot of times last season for Buffalo looked like he should have went in the top 10 in his draft year, which was 2019, which he would have went top 10 had he not tore his Achilles. And then you have Jack Quinn, we have to remember, he's a rookie. He's a rookie. He's going to have rookie growing pains. He's not going to come in and score 30 goals right off the bat. If he does, great, amazing. Probably not going to happen though. And you're going to have to manage his minutes too. So he's probably going to have to start out on like the third line potentially. And who knows who his line mates are going to be. He might be paired with Cousins right away. You never know. But I'm thinking Middlestad's going to be third line center to start the year. And he might be paired with Middlestad to start.
I think Middlestad's going to wing.
I don't know, because I don't think the team views Peyton Krebs as a center. I think they view him as a winger. So I think they're going to keep. So then if you put Middlestad on the wing, who's playing third line center for this team after
I think it'll be Krebs.
Cousins? I don't think so. I think it's going to be Middlestad. I think they're going to play. I think the first line's going to stay as Skinner, Thompson, Tuck. I think the second line's going to be Krebs, Cousins, Olofsson. And then Middlestad and Quinn, and they're probably going to start Hinostroza out on the third line with Middlestad and Quinn, and then they're going to hope, or even Asplund too, they're going to hope that Peterka takes that spot. But then even then, if you have two rookies on the team, they're good, and there's going to be growing pains. Their Sabres aren't going to be scoring a lot of goals that way, because you can't just be relying on their top line the whole time. That's what we've been going through the last 5-6 years. You know, the top line scores, but nobody else does. Yeah.
Well, you don't have the puck moving defenseman to move it up, which is why I don't think the Sabres are there just yet. We're talking too much about.
I still think they're a year away.
Front.
Well, Dahlin can take that in the end.
But that's
right.
one.
That's one guy. You have to hope. Well, Samuelson's not much of a puck mover, but you have Owen Power and you have Bryson as well.
You do have Owen Power,
and that's where it's gonna. You can get that distribution for puck moving defensemen. Even Bryson too, and having Ilya Lyubushkin there should help out Jacob Bryson a lot more, because at least having that defensive coverage means Bryson can be more offensively minded, which is what he should be.
Yeah, we're just excited that maybe we're finally coming out these doldrums that we've been in the last 11 years.
The team just brought back Lawrence Pilot too, and he's a good puck mover.
Yeah. So
I'm looking at your blue line. Lyubushkin's your oldest guy. I mean, you need a little bit of time.
Years old, yeah.
I
22-year-olds and 18-year-olds
will be there.
Yeah, I think the Sabres are a year away. I think they're going to improve this season, especially if Comrie has even a slightly similar year. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be a 920 goalie this year. I probably would say no, but I could see him being a 910 goalie. And
if our defense is better than Winnipeg's, our defense has to be better than Winnipeg's.
But that's where I'd say it still comes down to the fit in terms of how does the Sabres' defensive style fit to Comrie's game. You know, the Sabres were a team that had struggled the last few years being shorthanded, and Comrie is not a good goalie when the team is shorthanded. I mean, there aren't that many good goalies who are good when the team is shorthanded, but Connor Hellebuck is one of those guys, and you notice it right away in the numbers. So Comrie, if he's more of average when the team is shorthanded, and he's average overall in his numbers, that should, in theory, propel the Sabres to some more wins. How many is going to be the question. I think
where are they coming from?
And where are the goals coming from too? Yes,
Toronto, Florida are not going away.
Nope. Tampa's not going away.
Well, maybe
Boston is old. Boston's the team it needs to come from. Yep. If I'm reading that division right, Boston's going to take a step back first, and then it's going to be Tampa. Florida, I have no idea what to expect from them. That season came out of nowhere, but they're stacked.
But they've been good the last 3 years.
Yeah. The pandemic hockey kind of was.
It did mess a lot of things up. But you saw a lot of stuff from Florida, even pre-pandemic. They were doing really well, and then the pandemic and then the shortened pandemic season, they were really good, and then it just went up even further. Now they're going to come down, but I don't know if they come down as much. They might not. I don't know if I would take them to win the division next year, but they're still.
No.
I think at the very least, they're still a top 3 team in that division.
Yeah.
And then even to the same. I would take our break. I think so.
We got to take a 17-second break. Go ahead, Frank.
All right. I'm also going to say, I think then you also got to deal with, look at what Ottawa's done this offseason as well. Even Detroit's done at least some good things. I think the Sabres can still be better than them, but Ottawa's the team then that you got to, if Boston falls off, that 4th spot might come down to either Boston, if they hang on that, Ottawa.
I'm never about that.
I keep forgetting about Ottawa, and Detroit don't. Teams got to stop trading with Steve Yzerman. They just got to stop.
Yeah, that too. Well, that too, yeah.
Because you're looking at teams that Buffalo needs to take wins from, and the only team that they can get wins, they can get more wins out of, is Montreal, because Montreal's going to be awful.
Yeah. And Toronto. We always do Toronto. All right, we're going to take 17. We're going to take 17 seconds here to talk about our sponsors. Obviously, our sponsors, John and Mary Subs. If you love subs, go down there. Get one of our chicken finger pizzas with the steak on there. I eat them all the time. They're so good, the chicken and the steak, And also Dinosaur Barbecue. They're located. I think you have Dinosaur Barbecue down there, right, Dave?
We have Dinosaur Barbecue down there.
All right. I'm about to make you hungry. Folks, we'll be back in a few seconds.
Haven't eaten it.
Yeah, sorry, but I didn't mean to cut you off.
I haven't eaten dinner yet. I'm starving, and now you do that. I'm like, well, I don't know if I can curse. I don't. So you tell me.
When that happens, no one can hear nothing. So, can you curse on here? I don't know. It's not made for kids.
Fair enough.
All right, so we're gonna switch. We're gonna go off the deep end here a little bit. One of the reasons why I actually invited you on was we were talking about Chris Drury. I emailed you and I said, hey, I saw your story about Drury, and I agreed with you on everything you wrote about. And I thought, you're a Ranger fan, so I felt that was all right, good. This ain't me being biased or what happened to me and happened to Sabre fans in 2007. We'll talk about that for a minute too in a bit. But we have some guys say, oh, yeah, Chris Drury's gonna be a great GM. I said, well, why is he gonna be a great GM? And there's nothing makes it, oh yeah, well he's gonna. I go, well, I talked to people. I said, why? Because he was great in the ice. So what? I said, Patrick Roy wasn't a good coach. Patrick Roy was not a good coach on the bench for Colorado, right? Or he had his problems. I go, we don't know, right. I mean, it's. I always say, he took over a team that was probably already starting to get built. I couldn't tell you who he had, but he had some players already there. I don't know how much he was involved. I mean, we were told when Botterill came here, he was 10 years assistant GM, and he was the architect of the 2 last teams at one. So we were fed all this, and now all of a sudden Drury out of nowhere is getting this GM spot, which I don't know if anyone expected how it came about. All of a sudden he's a GM. When they fired one guy, and all of a sudden here he's a GM. He was never a GM in the minors, as far as I know. He didn't have much front office experience, as far as I know. And then I said, well, look at Kevin Adams. He said, yeah, he's got none. Well, no. Actually, when Botterill was here, Kevin Adams was going to Board of Governor meetings, hanging out. He was doing a lot of the background GM stuff because they've been grooming him. And I'll let you take the spot for here, Dave. But how do you feel about when Drury got the job? How did that happen? I forgot what caused the firing. Something happened.
It was the Tom Wilson Panarin incident.
Okay. All right, so he becomes GM. How do you feel how he starts GM? Where do you think it's going? We'll go from there. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, this is going to be a long one. All right, so
breathe once in a while.
Breathing's overrated. Who needs that?
Right.
The Tom Wilson thing was bad. It was a bad look for the Rangers, but I think it was something that needed to happen, which sounds kind of odd.
Okay, what happened? Let's tell people who didn't know what happened.
Oh, okay. So, God, I tried to black this out of my mind. More or less, Tom Wilson ragdolled Artemi Panarin behind the net in a scrum.
Yep. And
the Rangers were still technically in the playoff race, but not really. And then I think Pavel Buchnevich jumped on top of Wilson, and he wound up getting his ass kicked too. And
Panarin got hurt on that as well.
Panarin got hurt. He was out for this
He
is
was
where
out
the
a
whole
while.
this is where the pandemic hockey thing kind of messes with my mind a bit. I think he was done for the rest of the year.
I want to say
And
too.
Tom
Yeah.
Wilson's sitting there doing a stupid little, flex thing, professional wrestler
Oh yeah, he
flex
did
thing.
that in the penalty box.
Yeah, and then the
That
Rangers'
game.
response was basically to, have a line brawl the next game. But
Been there, done that.
what happened with Drury was he had been the assistant GM for a few years. He'd been the GM in
Mhm.
Hartford, and the Rangers declined to allow teams to interview him. So it was very
Buffalo.
clear he was going to get the role at some point. And this is where I get into the rumor mill and not on confirmed.
Well, rumors are good.
Yeah, rumors are fun. So
They're fun.
I
this
always
is
say-
not officially confirmed, but I've heard this from a few people now that when the Rangers sent out that statement that they thought George Parros was a fool, that the Department of Player Safety really dropped the ball with not suspending Tom Wilson, that neither Jeff Gordon nor John Davidson agreed with sending out that statement. And that was the last straw for Jim Dolan, the owner of the Rangers, with Jeff Gordon. He had been looking to fire him. He thought that the Rangers should be a playoff team, and they weren't. He was very upset about that. And he basically told John Davidson, who was the president of the team, you have to fire him now. And Davidson says, if Gordon goes, I go. So fired them both, made Chris Drury president and general manager. That's the rumor of what happened. I've heard it from a few people. I'm inclined to believe it.
That's a big jump.
That sounds about right from everything I've read as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. That is what I believe happened. I'm assuming we're missing something that wasn't talked about. We don't hear about these things until 3-4 yeyears down the line. Like, we didn't hear that Rangers and the Lightning had a handshake deal for Steven Stamkos in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
They had a handshake deal for Steven Stamkos. That it was with the wrong GM of the Lightning at the time, so that never happened. We didn't hear about the Ryan McDonough to Edmonton for the number 4 overall pick in 2017 until 5 years later, or 4 years later. Sorry, I'm losing again. Pandemic really messed with my concept of time.
So how do you feel about Drury's job so far? Okay, so he gets the job as president and GM and president, 2 big titles, first time ever. What were your thoughts like? I mean, were you happy that he was getting the job?
Yeah. Initially, so Steve Valiquette is a former Rangers goalie. He has his own analytics company. He does a lot of broadcasts for the Rangers. He does a great job breaking down numbers and systems and how it's supposed to work together. He was very excited about Drury being GM. And I know what Chris Drury is like from people that I've spoken to. He's intense. He is he's very patient. He knows what he wants, and he goes and gets it. And those qualities are usually good for GMs, and we've seen him make very good trades. Getting anything for Brett Howden was a miracle. Although I didn't necessarily like the trade for Ryan Reeves, but that turned out to be great because Reeves is fantastic in the locker room. When he took over, he wanted to make sure that the Rangers had a locker room that was not divisive. And that's what the Rangers locker room was. It was very cliquey. You had the D'Angelo group that had Strome. It had Brendan Lemieux. It had somebody. I think it actually had Adam Fox too, but you don't get rid of Adam Fox.
No.
And then you had the other side of the locker room, which dealt with them but wasn't over. It was fractured, and you could tell. And Drury wanted to make sure that the Rangers had a locker room. They had players that had defined roles, and everybody knew what they were going to do. Got rid of Quinn. Everybody liked that. Hired Gallant. Everybody liked that. Traded Buchnevich. Horrible fucking trade. Sorry.
It's after 9 o'clock. It's after 9 o'clock. All right.
I mean,
yes.
it's not. It's also not wrong to think
It's
that
a
way.
second-round pick and a 4th liner. I like Sammy Blais. I like the way he plays. He's in on the 4. Again, I'm going to keep saying, I've been saying it since we started, in on the 4-check.
Mm-hmm.
That was something the Rangers didn't do under David Quinn. It's something they were doing relatively inconsistently last year. But he's in on the 4-check. But he's a 4th liner. You're telling me you're trading a point-per-game player and a top-line winger for a second-round pick and a 4th liner? Horrible trade.
Mm-hmm.
But he got something for Brett Howden. He made the trade for Ryan Reeves. Fine, not a big deal. Re-signed Reeves to another year. Wasn't really the biggest fan of that, but again, not a big deal. The Barclay Goodrow contract was bad on the surface.
Got the wrong Goodrow.
Wow.
So you have the Buchnevich trade, you have the Goodrow contract, and then you have Natalie Kravzov for the second time leaving the Rangers. And Chris Drury was the guy at the helm of the Hartford Wolfpack, because the Wolfpack had the same locker room issues that the Rangers had. And Chris Drury was the GM of the Wolfpack when Kravzov left both times and when Lias Andersson left. 2 top 10 picks, 3 times leaving the Wolfpack. There was a reason behind it, and Chris Drury was the guy that was at the helm for all 3. When
this
I
is
wrote
what I wanted
that,
to get to. What happened? What he was talking? You said he was lambasting the guy in the locker room and in front of the other players.
Yep, he did it in front of his teammates, and you can't do that to a 19-year-old kid. So we're 5 months into Chris Drury's tenure as GM. He signed a 6-year contract for a 4th-line player. He traded the second best winger for peanuts, and now another top 10 pick had left the team. So when I wrote that post in October 19th, 2021, not only did the Rangers have those issues, but then there was no backup plan. So Kravtsov had already left once, and they knew he wasn't happy. And there's no right winger. And then you trade Buchnevich, and there's nobody there to back up Kravtsov for if this happens again. It's the same guy at the helm. It's the same winger, and there's nobody else. And then you lose Sammy Blais, and now we're talking about what the winger construction was for the Rangers most of last year. That was a problem for the Rangers, and that's why the Rangers had past tense, a Chris Drury problem, because he was in the locker room, he was micromanaging, and he didn't have a full plan for if this didn't work out.
That's a question I want to ask Frank real quick. I don't recall, and I could be wrong if you say, oh yeah, I remember. I don't recall GMs. Usually coaches do that. They land-based players, not GMs. I mean, is that what you're saying, Dave? Is he was micromanaging? Like normally GMs don't do that, right? Normally they talk to the coach, and the coach does all the yelling. Why was Drury? Do you feel he was overstepping?
So this is coming from a Rangers beat writer who said that Drury was in Kravtsov's face in front of his teammates the first time he left, saying he quit on the team. Mm-hmm. And then the second time, Drury basically said go. And the relationship was fractured. It was clear Kravtsov wasn't going to be a Ranger after that. So you're looking at one top 10 bust in Lias Andersson, who we don't know what the deal was there, but you're playing Brendan Smith at forward over your 7th overall pick. Can't blame Lias Andersson for leaving. Natalie Kravzov got reamed by his GM twice. And he didn't make the team out of camp, despite some other guys, specifically Libor Hayek, still on the team, because they were afraid of losing Hayek to waivers. This one I still don't get. But Kravtsov didn't have to pass through waivers, so he got sent down, and now he's gone back to the KHL. All this in October. Drury had a rough start to his tenure, but I will give him the draft. He did a good job with the draft. He got Hoffman, who's fantastic. He got 1, 2, 3, 4 other high-ceiling guys in that draft. He got the draft. He got something for Brett Howden. It wasn't all bad, but the bad really outweighed the good.
This past draft or the one back? He's
talking about 2021.
Okay. So you think a lot of that had to do with thrown in the fire? I mean, here's an assistant GM, and all of a sudden you're GM and president now. You think that had something to do with the start? Like, I gotta, take some kind. Maybe he was seeing stuff he didn't like while he was assistant, but couldn't say much, and he just wanted to clear it. I mean, you guys got to the 3rd round, so obviously, like you said, he turned around, did something right.
So again, the rumor with the Buchnevich trade was they needed to shake up the locker room. And that sent ripple effects down. And it had the desired effect. I'm looking back at it. The Rangers got nothing for him, and it's still a terrible trade. But by getting rid of Brendan Lemieux before at the trade deadline in 21, then firing D'Angelo into the sun and buying him out, then bringing in guys like Goodrow, and we'll get to that contract and the Trocheck contract too, because those are connected. Bringing guys like Goodrow, bringing in Reeves, you change the locker room. And the whole thing with Rangers Twitter last year was the vibes, and the vibes per 60 for the stat folks out there. The Rangers were fun to watch because of the way the locker room was. And you don't see that in October. And I still have questions about the way Drury's going to manage the team, but you can't argue with what he's done since. He nailed the trade deadline. He didn't give up anything of value, and the Rangers went to the Eastern Conference Final. Mm-hmm. The draft this year was, I like Sikora. I like McConnell Barker. From the people I've spoken to, the last 4 were whiffs, but it was a bad draft class anyway, so I don't really know what to make of it. I'm not a prospect guy.
Class, yeah.
I'm not a prospect guy. I'm not going to pretend to know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. I'm not numbers nerds either, so I trust Frank and Steve when Steve's around. He's on vacation this week, so
and I trust those guys to tell me.
You're right. And speaking of being about trusting, right, like GMs get a lot of credit for who they draft, but you gotta give a lot of credit to you gotta have the right scouts, right. And Drury and GMs have to be willing to listen to them. And sometimes, that says a lot to
the biggest thing.
Yeah, where Adams has what do you call it on the side with them, our associate GM from Carolina. So, help me out here, Frank. Carmanos. He's got Carmanos helping him out. Now he's called the associate GM, not assistant. I think eventually he becomes a GM, and Adams moves one more step further to the presidency. I think that happens soon. And we got a very good guy in the analytics department, maybe the best in hockey.
Sam Ventura.
Yeah, so
you do have Sam.
A good GM is only as good as the people he puts around him. Is Drury going to let him do that? It sounds like he, in one season, from one end to the other, it was a complete it was like down here. Yes, and he totally different person.
Complete flip. And I got to give him credit. He has earned the benefit of the doubt from the Buchnevich trade and the contracts. I've been talking about the Goodrow and the Trocheck contracts. 6 years for Goodrow, 7 for Trocheck. Horrible on the surface because those guys are going to be awful by halfway through the contract.
That's how it works. How it works.
And this is something that I never agreed with. There's a lot of people saying if you sign a contract knowing that the player is not going to finish that contract with the team, it's a bad contract to start. I think that is total horseshit. The Rangers are a tale of 2 teams. They have another 2, maybe 3 seasons left with Kreider, Zibanejad, Panarin, Trouba. At that point, if you look at the contract structure, Trouba's no move. Becomes a no trade. Zibanejad and Panarin's payouts make them a little bit easier to move. And Kreider, I don't know what's going on with him, but I don't think his skill set will age as poorly as the others.
If you win a cup in the next 2 years, do you care?
I think as long as he's healthy, he'll be fine. But if he has an injury or two, then you're gonna look at him falling off a cliff a lot sooner rather than later.
Probably, and that's the risk.
Especially because he's 31.
Yeah, and so you win now with those guys. You have one of the best pure shooting centers in the game in Zibanejad. You got Panarin. You got Trouba, who may not be this amazing puck-moving defenseman, but he changed 2 series. He did. In the playoffs, he changed 2 series, and you need players like him. And he's not bad.
He might have been your best player in the playoffs for some reason.
He was probably the best defenseman in the playoffs, named Keandre Miller.
Yeah, he was.
We'll get to that second core.
Yeah.
So that's the second team, is the Lafrenières, Kakos, maybe Hedl, maybe Kravzov, but Keandre Miller definitely.
Adam Fox kind of leads that. And that leads that.
And Fox is going to cover both cores. And I think Fox is going to wind up being the captain at some point to bridge that gap. But you win now with this current core of the 30-year-olds. Then you're probably going to take a step back for 2-3 seasons as the younger core when they're 24, 25, transitioning to a leadership role, and you backfill from there. So that's the second core of the Rangers, and that's when you are going to see people like Goodrow and Trocheck traded. Or if they're still good, still with the Rangers, you never know. Right. But
you're probably
they're not
cup
going to
now
finish with the Rangers. Yeah. That's the intention.
This past season, I think this past season probably put you guys in the close to the win cup now mode, so you got to do those kind of things. Maybe before the season you wouldn't have thought that, but the way it went, you see your goaltending, everything else, you're probably at that point now. So we're actually 4 minutes past time, but I don't care. It's too much fun. I'm gonna go with my last topic, and I'm gonna hop off. If you guys want to keep talking to midnight, I don't care. But no, Dave, it's been great having you. But I want to ask the final wrap-up question. I like doing this one. Is I'm gonna throw out my answer first, though. Who do you believe? You guys are younger than me, so who do you believe is the best Rangers player of all time? And I'm gonna go with, because I'm not that old. I'd have to go with Brian Leetch. He was an amazing defenseman. He was great for his career. Frank, I'm sure he's probably before your time a little bit.
A little
bit.
I'm 38, guys. I grew up idolizing him.
All right. Rangers have a great history, a long history. I mean, they've had players back in the 60s, 70s. Great players. But, you can't count Guy Lafleur. You can't count Phil Esposito because they came when it was over. Marcel Dion. I'm talking about the greatest player being Van Buesbroek might be right there. Brian Leetch on defense. On forward, Ron Duguay, Barry Beckham, those are the guys back then.
Yeah.
But, so.
Gilbert up front. No question. Right, Gilbert or Rattel.
So,
and it's Gilbert for me.
And both of them went to the Bruins or they came from the Bruins. I'm not sure. There's only 16s back then, so it doesn't take much. But I'm going to go with Brian Leetch.
That's a very good one. And I'm a little bit more modern, but the first guy I think of is Lundqvist.
Very good, yep.
I think Lundqvist, at least in terms of my generation of early 2000s to even today, I think Lundqvist is the best goalie ever in this generation. I just look at the numbers, I look at how he played, and I just think there's nobody better than him. I'll be honest, this might be a take for me as a Sabres fan who grew up idolizing Ryan Miller. I use a Ryan Miller jersey when I play most of the time. I will stand by this take. I think Lundqvist should have won the Vezina in 2010.
He should have.
I think his numbers were that much better. And I think Miller only won that because of how amazing he was in the Olympics. He was amazing that season. He deserved to win it, but I think Lundqvist was just a little bit better. Maybe not a little bit better, but a lot
Trophies
better.
Are tough when you're voting. Just like the Constance Light in the playoffs.
But there was just nobody who was better and more consistent than Lundqvist. He came into the Rangers right away and was great. And you do not see that with goalies.
Is number 2 all time in goalies in the NHL history to me. Hasek being number 1.
I don't even have Hasek as number 1. I have Hasek as number 2. Everyone, you guys
Hasek had a slinky first line.
I know. I have
number 1.
My number 1 is Patrick Roy when it comes to best goalies.
For me, it's all about how do you impact the game, and the and I agree with this. The 2 goalies who have no better, who are the best at impacting the game for their time, Hasek, Lundqvist.
Yep, that's how I see it. Is Hasek, Lundqvist 1-2 in goalies. If you're looking at best Rangers player, I see somebody said Mike Richter. I love Richter. Genius. He's a genius, but Richter is not up there. It's either Gilbert, Leetch, or Lundqvist. I lean Lundqvist because the word generational gets thrown around a lot. Lundqvist was a true generational talent, and even when the Rangers were when the Rangers bought him out, and he signed with Washington, and then he wound up with a heart condition and not playing. A lot of the blame went to Lundqvist because I think he had like a .906 save percentage. But if you looked at the advanced goaltending stats, he was still top 5 in the league.
He is still really good, yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest crime in hockey is Lundqvist winning one Vezina.
Yes.
Biggest
100%.
crime in hockey.
100%.
And the second biggest crime is the way Glenn Sather, mostly Glenn Sather, and I feel bad. Actually, I don't feel bad saying this. Fuck him.
Well, Messier was he was never very long, but Messier, he was why he won
there
the cup, right?
I got stories about Messier. I love Messier, but I got stories about Messier.
I'll say that for another time. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. It's getting late for me. I'm gonna say goodbye. If you guys want to stay on longer, Frank can take over from here. Dave, I really appreciate you having you on. I want to bring you on again. We're gonna do a roundtable later in the year. I think October 5th.
I have a 1-year-old, so I got to see how that goes.
Oh, I know.
Right.
I definitely want to. This is great. I love
Yep.
shooting the shit about hockey. I can do this all day.
Yeah, we're doing a preseason roundtable with a couple of people. I'd like to get you good. I think we're talking October 5th. The season starts October 7th overseas. Every other team starts playing the following week. I really want to do it before any teams play. It's easier to get people. But once game night start, me and Frank kind of move things around. But we'll figure it out. We'll definitely want you back. Frank, if you want to stay on longer, or what do you think? You guys want to keep talking?
Yeah, I was actually going to say,
right.
if you want to finish what you were talking about, we'll finish and we'll wrap up.
I got to go. I have 10 kids, so I really do have to go.
10 kids?
Only 7 left at home. Only 7 left at home. We are 9 days away from adopting our little one. He's 3 years old. We're also foster parents. So, and Frank will tell you, just sometimes where I'm preparing a show, and I can't make it tight, Frank, because at the last second something happens. So
yeah,
I stick Frank a lot, but I wanted to be on his own return. So Frank, I appreciate you tonight. Dave, I really appreciate you. Everybody follow Dave. He's great. And tomorrow,
thank you guys. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I love this.
Absolutely. And tomorrow I'll put it up on audio, so then it's gonna be like Spotify. I got like 10 different ones through Anchor. So I'm out. You guys have a great night, and I will talk to you later, Frank. I'll talk to you later.
Yep.
Thanks, Dave. Nice meeting you.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, bye.
Next one. So yeah, Dave, just what you were talking about, finish up.
Yeah. So I'm biased. I played goalie growing up. I got to say Lundqvist is the best Ranger. Yep. I actually mimicked my game after Richter. It was just that I don't know how to call Richter's style, but it was the challenging the shooter, but still having the instincts to read the play and make the split saves. The Bure save in Game 5 is still that one that sticks out in everybody's mind. Just that kind of style is how I played. I love Richter, but he's nowhere near Lundqvist level. And when you ask any Ranger fan, it's Gilbert, Leach, or Lundqvist. Those are the three. Messier will get a couple of answers, and I love Mark Messier as a Ranger, but he was the architect behind the Sergei Zubov trade. Going to the Penguins, he didn't want Zubov on the team because he smoked. Apparently, that was the rumor. He, especially now, has this habit of inserting himself into certain situations. He wanted to be the Rangers coach for a while, and he would make it very well known he wanted to be the Rangers coach. He went to Vancouver, and there's a reason why Canucks fans hate him. Messier is one of the best Rangers acquisitions, but he is not one of the best Rangers. He's not even on my Rangers Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, when I look at like team Mount Rushmores and like best player of all time, I'm looking at guys who made their name on the team. Look at guys who, you associate this player with this team. I don't associate Messier with the Rangers. I associate Messier with the Oilers. That's where he made his. That's where he made his career. That's where he got. That's how people know him. That's how you first view him. Obviously, you can look at Messier in like two different ways, because you can look at Messier on the Rangers for what he did, but then you also look at Messier on the Oilers. You kind of look at them as almost two separate people in that way.
Yeah.
But like when you think of Dominic Hasek, you always think of what he did as a Sabres goalie, not really what he did in Detroit or what he did in Ottawa. Yeah, even Chicago. Yeah. You always look at, whenever you think of Hasek, you think of the late 90s Sabres. Exactly.
Yep.
Obviously, like Gilbert Perreault played his whole career in Buffalo, so he will always be associated with the Sabres. But you always associate Rick Martin with the Sabres. You always associate Rene Robert with the Sabres. Even though those two guys played on different teams later in their career, you always associate them with Buffalo. You can even put Mike Richter in that, as you associate him with the Rangers because of what he did in '94. But then Lundqvist is especially that. I mean, that's why he's my number one for me, especially when you look at. when you look,
changed the game. And Shesterkin idolized him growing up, and now we went from Lundqvist to Shesterkin.
Yeah,
I mean,
look at that.
Come on.
It's amazing.
Ranger fans are so spoiled with our goaltending. And we got another kid in the system, Dylan Garand, who was phenomenal. I think he won goalie of the year in the WHL. He's 20 years old. He's like a fourth round pick. He is supposed to be another kid who's the real deal. And you just I don't know what it is about the Rangers that they're goalie whisperers. They draft all these amazing goalies. They wind up trading 3 or 4 backups who turn into starters. They get hauls for all of them, but they can't draft a forward to save their lives.
They brought up Ranting, Cam Talbot,
Ranta, and now I don't know what Georgiev too. Those are the 3, and then you look at the other backups. Marty Biron was great until Hurdle deked him into retirement.
Yeah, hey, we love
that was actually really funny.
Yeah.
I felt bad.
We all love in Buffalo love Marty. He's still around here. He does a show. He does a daily show for talking about the hockey and the Sabres here every day. So and he's on the Sabres broadcast team as well. He does pre and post game, and occasionally we'll be on the broadcast as well. And he's awesome. I love Marty. I love his personality. I love what he does.
Marty was a great Ranger for the year and 3 games that he was there. And then Steve Valaket turned into a great backup for the Rangers. Benoit Allaire is the Rangers goalie coach. He's just unreal with what the Rangers are able to do. And to go from Lundqvist to Shesterkin, and then possibly Garand should Shesterkin, who has a bit of an injury issue, fall off a cliff.
You never know what happens to goalies. They're always so voodoo. I mean, and Allaire's been there since 2004, man. So he's been working. He's been working with Lundqvist for primarily his whole career with the Rangers, and I mean, their ability to just develop goalies should be looked at, and because you can draft a goalie, but you work this way with the draft. This is how I look at the draft too. Every pick you make, realistically, outside of the typically top 10, top 15, every pick after that, all the 2nd to 7th round as well, it's a dart. You're just throwing a dart. You're just taking a guy who you think's got a high ceiling, and you're hoping to get the most out of him. And really, the only way you can get the most out of him is your development team, all your development coaches, all your scouts being able to just put these kids on the best path. And the Rangers have been doing that with their goalies for, when they got Lundqvist and they put him on that path, and then he comes to the NHL and he's a star right away. It's amazing what they've been able to do. And really, I mean, that's what you want on a draft. And that's just been a problem that the Sabres have had for years. And, now we're kind of seeing the changes that they've made, and you're starting to see it come into fruition with Quinn and Peterka. And then you have Power 2021, even Isaac Rosine, who's their other 1st round pick. There, he's a kid that just needs to play more. I mean, he's barely played since he's been drafted, and that's not good for development. You got to get these kids playing and everything. Yeah,
these kids in the last 3-4 drafts, they lost key years in how they're able to develop. I mean, Brennan Hoffman, for example, the Rangers' 1st round pick in 21.
Yep.
He played in Switzerland, and he played like 25 games, and he looked like crap because he was a 17-year-old playing in Switzerland in a professional league, So, and then this year he puts up what? I think it was 50.
I'm looking at his
50 goals.
He's got 50 goals.
It was 50 goals and I think
97 points in 66 games. 66 games, and then the playoffs, 24 points in 19 games. I mean, amazing.
And he can't even play in the NHL next year. Sorry, AHL. He can't play in the AHL next year. Yeah. So he's going to go the Mitch Marner route. He's going to go back to the OHL and absolutely crush it.
Yep.
And then he'll be on the Rangers next year.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. He's a very interesting prospect to watch for. I mean, Jack Quinn was the same way. I mean, his draft year, he scored 50 goals, and the Sabres took him. I think it was 8th or 7th overall, something like that. But like, it's always about how you develop these kids, and the Rangers doing that with their goalies, going from Lundqvist to Shesterkin, and then who knows with going from Shesterkin to who. But then again, like, if Shesterkin stays healthy and he continues to put up these kind of numbers, even a little less, even if his average is around like 920 throughout his career, I mean, he's going to have a Lundqvist career. He's going to be there for 15 years and be there. So, well, maybe not 15 years, maybe at least another 10 years at that point, because he's 26 right now. But you see that, and who knows who he's gonna pass the torch along to. You really never know. But when you're able to develop these guys, you're able to have a stalwart in net like the Rangers have had with Lundqvist, and now what they have with Shesterkins. I mean, that goes a long way for your team. Now, Colorado showed
get in the playoffs.
Yeah, it just allows you to get in. And then who knows after that? You never know. You really don't. I mean, Colorado showed that you can win the cup with average goaltending. Kreider was really good in the regular season, but in the playoffs, he wasn't that great. He wasn't the reason they won. He did make the saves that you had to make, and that's really all you can ask for out of your goalie.
Yep.
So
I like the way Colorado does things.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why the Rangers are a tale of two teams. Shesterkin's contract ends right as Trouba ends, right as I think Panarin ends
2025.
Yep. I think they all have 2 or 3 seasons left.
Trouba is 2026, so is Panarin.
But the no move for Trouba comes off the books. I'm checking Cap Friendly now.
I'm looking at it right now, 2024.
Yep. So that's when I think Trouba's gone after the 23-24 season. His no move is $8 million contract. Get that off the books.
And the salary and the real dollars is a lot easier too, because his contract is front loaded.
And then you look at Goodrow right after the 24-25 season where he makes $5 million. That cap number drops
just under 4.
Yep. You look at Panarin. The numbers drop significantly for
Panarin. I've noticed that the Rangers front load their contracts. Typically.
And they also put a lot of it in signing bonuses because they know that last signing bonus gets paid. And those last 2 years, look at the Trocheck contract.
Yep.
He gets a $3 million signing bonus on July 1st, 2026. And then 3 seasons of, what does it say?
It's 2 seasons. 2027, he has up until 2027, he has a $3 million signing bonus.
Right.
Then then in 2028, 1.5, and then the last year of his contract is $1 million.
But once you pay the bonus, it's $3 million less that a team has to pay, like Ottawa or Nashville or anything like that. But his no move is only for 3 seasons. That's a contract they don't expect to finish. And that's why the Rangers, we're all going full circle here. We're talking about if the Rangers can do it again, they have to do it again over the next 2 years, or else we're looking at 4 or 5 more years before Lafreniere and Kakko take over.
Mm-hmm.
If
they can step up,
that's a big if.
Yep.
We'll know after this year.
Yeah, really, you'll probably know as the season's going along. You might even know this by next January for all we who knows, really.
I like to wait until Thanksgiving to make a true evaluation of the team. By Thanksgiving, we'll know what they're capable of.
I think so. I agree with that. Well, Dave, this is awesome. You're great to talk to. We'll definitely have you on again. Hopefully, if we do that roundtable in October, we can have you on for that. Plug your stuff, plug everything so that people can know where to find you.
Well, first, thank you guys. I love doing this. You guys are fantastic. I love being on. Again, Dave Shapiro, BlueSeatBlogs.com at BlueSeatBlogs, and we also have a podcast at Blue Seats Live that is run by one of my best friends and her husband. I join them as often as I can. We also just love shooting the shit about hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And what sets us and no offense to any other Rangers writer, blogger, podcasters listening to this. Sorry, don't take this the wrong way. We like to stay optimistic about the Rangers, and we like to look a couple of years in. That's where the tale of the 2 teams comes from. That's where the contracts are meant to be traded comes from. I like to think we're unique with that. And if you guys are looking for an optimistic spin on a lot of things, come to us. But we're also not afraid to call a spade a spade. Pavel Buchnevich trade was a bullshit trade.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Drury was awful in his first 5 months, but he's earned the benefit of the doubt. If you guys ever want to talk Rangers, let me know. If I don't answer you on Twitter, I apologize. I had to mute a lot of mentions because my mentions are a tire fire. Shoot me an email, and I always respond to emails.
I've seen some of the mentions you were talking about, especially when it comes to non-hockey stuff. But yeah, it's quite all right. Obviously, we can always do that. Hey, if you ever want to talk Sabres and you need someone to talk Sabres with,
definitely going to give you guys a call.
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely. No, I love just talking hockey in general. It doesn't have to just be Sabres; it can be any team. I love just looking at teams and looking at what they're building and everything. I mean, it's so much fun just to talk hockey. That's why I love the sport so much. That's why it's my number one sport.
Absolutely, same here, and it's been a blast with you guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for tuning into the show, Dave. Thanks again. You are awesome. We'll definitely have you on. Next week we'll it's basically summer now, so we're kind of in that lull period. So we might not do shows every week, but we'll probably try and do them once in a while. And then once football season gets going too, we'll not only be talking about Sabres, we'll be talking some Bills, and we're all so excited to see what the Bills are going to be like this year.
I'm a Jet fan.
Hey, I mean, they got it. There's hope for them as well.
No, there isn't.
Come on, I thought you were optimistic.
Not with football. No.
Okay, fine.
Come on, man. When you're a Jets fan, you've been beaten into the ground too much.
I know that from being a Bills fan and having to deal with we both have to deal with the Patriots for 20 years in the division, and
stupid Tom Brady.
Yeah, well now they're dead, so it's okay.
All right, fair enough.
All right, Dave, you have a great night. Hopefully we'll do a show next week. Maybe we'll do a show the week after that, but we got football coming up soon too in August, so we'll see you there. Everybody have